Go get it. It's okay.
Good morning and welcome from Tucson. We are the Bereans from Tucson and welcome to our show. My name is Tanya and I'm your host, co-hosting with Simona today. Good morning, Simona.
Good morning, Tanya.
And today we have a very special guest, actually two special guests. We have Robyn Schwarz, which we have been speaking about and announcing for the past couple of weeks. And so she's here in the studio with us today. And, well, to get started, we're going to introduce Robyn, and I'm going to go through some of those questions. We're going to have some questions with her, some interaction today. Also, I'm going to give some feedback and discuss, because we are the Bereans, so we like to discuss scriptures, so scriptures that apply to the experience that she had just over a year ago. So welcome, Robyn.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Hope this all goes well with Thomas. He's here somewhere. Oh, here we come. You'll see him come in and out, so it'll be good, I think.
That's totally fine.
He's 3, you know.
Almost 3.
Almost 3.
Okay, so about a year ago, when he was not quite 2.
He was 20 months.
20 months old.
Wow.
And this is the youngest of 3 children that you have.
Yep, I have a Jacob and Anna, 12 and 6. And then he's our youngest little guy. And so, yeah.
Awesome. So what happened about a year ago? Everything seemed fine. Your life was going well.
It was going great. I was working at our local church, and I was the kids' campus coordinator there. So anytime people would come in, you know, I would give them orientations, all that stuff.
Okay.
So I had a full-time job. My husband worked at the church as well, and things were going great. And Thomas had gotten sick. I mean, it was like, you know, when toddlers get sick, it could be a myriad of things.
Right. Sure.
And so I kind of let it go a little bit, and I'm like, well, he's had a lot of diarrhea and stuff. I was like, all right, take him to the doctor.
Yeah.
Right.
So June 10th was the first time I took him to the doctor, and she said, oh, it's just a virus. Take him home. He'll be fine. Well, the weekend he was fine. He was great. And that next Tuesday, I believe that was the 14th, in the middle of the night, he threw up. And which, you know, we've had kids. We know what that is. It's, you're like, okay, here we go. You know, change the sheets. We're fine. Go back to bed. But this was a whole different experience. It was not typical what you would expect. And so we got a little nervous, and that's when his fever started peaking. And so I started giving him, again, you start, you know, treating him at home.
Right.
So you do like Motrin or ibuprofen, all this stuff. And so for that day, I was like, it's not working. His fever's not coming down. So that, like, you know, that evening I called the after hours line. I'm like, okay, I was just there Friday. This is what's going on. Help me. They're like, we'll alternate the medicine every 3 hours. I'm like, this is our answer. Okay, thank you. That was Wednesday.
Not the answer you were hoping for.
No. And I'm like, can someone just fix it, please? You know, I kind of knew that something was going on. I'm like, surely, you know, it's just a virus. That's what my doctors are telling me. I'm going to believe them.
Right.
So Friday comes around, and again, fevers are not going down. He's lethargic. He won't drink. He won't eat, all this stuff. And so I'm like, he needs to go to the doctor. So when you take a little toddler to the doctor, usually they're like this. They're all over the floor. They're playing games. They're eating snacks. They're doing all this stuff. He was just sitting in my lap like,
Poor guy.
and I'm like, okay, so clearly we are not okay. And so the nurse practitioner said, well, go get some blood work done. Well, the place is closed because it's Friday.
Oh.
And then, so I called the office back and they're like, oh, just wait the weekend. I'm like, what do I do to tell them?
Right.
Right.
And she's like, I don't know.
Oh,
I'm like, okay, thanks a lot.
But at this point, you're getting kind of
So
nervous.
I'm getting nervous. I know
It's not a
something's happening.
virus.
And so the next day was our VBS prep day at church. And so, of course, me being on the kids' team, I'm like front and center.
Right. So Vacation Bible School
had to be
coming
there
up.
for that. And then I come home, and he is like on the recliner with Dad. He had been sitting on Dad's lap all day long.
Oh.
He's not good.
Yeah.
And I pick him up, and he immediately throws up again. And I told
gosh.
John, I'm like, let's go right now.
Yeah.
And we had a babysitter who lived around the corner. Had it not been for her, I don't know where we'd be. But she came over in 5 minutes. She was there, and we sprinted out of there. Ran to the ER, which is 35 minutes away.
Oh.
He's like wheezing the whole time. Like, we're scared. Like,
Yeah.
we're legit scared that he might die in the car. And so we get to the ER, and they, you know how it takes hours,
Yeah.
especially at this hospital. It was like kind of comical how long it could take. And so we got there, and when they evaluate you to find out like where they should put you in line, you know, she goes, "Oh, our heart rate's at 220.
Oh my.
We're getting a rash. Our belly is descending. 1 second." And so she's like, I'll be back in 1 minute. She wasn't kidding. She was back in 1 minute. She said, "We've got a room for you at the pediatric ER."
Okay.
Which that doesn't happen either. Usually you wait
Sure.
like 3 hours for that.
Right. So you knew it was something serious.
We knew it was, and immediately we didn't even go back to the lobby. We went from the evaluation room to the ER room.
Right.
And as we walk into the ER room, I'm carrying Thomas, and the doctor follows me in.
So now you know.
That's when you know you're like, oh. But in my mind, John and I have said this 1,000 times, he just has a virus. He just needs an IV. He just needs fluids.
So you're not even.
That's what we're under the assumption.
Yeah.
And as a parent, you don't want to believe that there's something else wrong. You want to believe that the doctors were right, that it's just a virus, that he'll be better.
He just
needs
needs
an
immediate
IV,
care.
right?
Okay.
That's what we think.
Okay.
He's just dehydrated. He really, if he could get some hydration,
Yeah.
then he
He'll
would
be
start
okay.
feeling better.
Okay.
He would perk up, right? That's what we are assuming. And that was not the case, obviously. So we go in there, and it's been a few hours, and you can visibly see him. His belly is getting bigger and bigger. He doesn't even care that the nurses are poking him with IVs. It doesn't even bother him. He's not crying. So that's another
Yeah.
red flag.
Huge sign.
Very much. And they did all the tests. CTs, ultrasounds. I mean, oh my gosh, so many things. But they brought it all to him. He didn't go anywhere. And so in passing, the nurse tells me, "Oh, have they not told you?" I'm like, "No." I kind of laughed, like, "No."
What am I supposed to know? Yeah.
What? You gonna tell me? You know? But they're so busy trying to save him that they didn't. In hindsight, I'm like, that's okay.
Right,
You know?
right, right.
I'd rather you do that than talk to me.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'll be all right. But she goes, "Yeah, they think it's acute appendicitis. He has 3 abscesses." And they didn't throw that word in until later. It was probably more later that night when we were talking other things, but he also had sepsis. So I don't know if you know anything about sepsis, but most people don't live
Yeah.
to talk about it.
Yeah.
So all of that combined, especially with his heart rate, his very, very low blood pressure, they couldn't get an IV in. He was so dehydrated. It was very difficult to even get an IV in. And at
So
that
are you
point,
inside the room with him at this point? Are you?
at this point,
You're still
we're
inside.
actually not, because there was
Okay.
so, you know, those rooms are like half this size.
Right.
They're very small. There's room for a bed, and there's room for like a couple people on each side, and that's pretty much it.
Okay.
And at that point, there's a doctor, a specialist, 2 nurses, like there's lots of people in the room. And so they're like, "Mom and Dad, it might be okay if you just step out. Here's a few chairs outside of his door. Why don't you just sit here for a little bit
Wow.
while we take care of him, get an IV in, do
Right.
these things."
Right.
I'm like, okay, you know, like that's fine. He needs an IV. He's dehydrated.
Right.
Right.
So it gets to a point where the social worker comes, and then you're going, "Why are you here?"
Right.
And because in my mom mind, I'm like, no. And she goes, "Let's go down the hallway. It might be easier to talk if it's not so
Oh my gosh.
chaotic."
Wow.
That's terrifying, taking you away from your child.
Yeah. Well, that's initially, I'm like, okay, you're nice. I'll follow you, right? Because I'm like, you go through stages, and I was in complete denial. John and I was like, I don't know what's going on. I'm like, why is she? And why is she here? You know. And at one point, I'm like getting angry with her because I'm like, you're embodying the thing I don't want to happen.
Oh, okay.
I think is pretty much what's going
Right.
on. But she's like, "Let's go to this room over here. I'll get you a Coke. What else can I get you?" And I'm like, "Yes, go get me a Coke,
Right.
so you'll leave."
Okay.
That's what
Okay.
I basically was like, "Yeah, go get us a Coke. That's great. Can you make it cold?" Because I knew she'd have to leave.
Right.
And so then it was like, John, let's pray. We gotta go.
Yeah.
Like, something's going on. We gotta go.
Yeah.
And so we just start praying. And then people will start interrupting us because they just need to talk to us. I'm like, that's fine. We're going to be praying. So if you need us, you're going to have to interrupt me. And so they come in, doctor after specialist after doctor after specialist. And John actually, I forgot this part, but he goes, yeah, there's points where specialists are coming in plain clothes. There's no lab coats. There's nothing.
So they're called in.
They're called in. They're woken up at home.
Okay.
And they're called in.
Wow.
Because the doctors on call aren't what they need.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're like, okay. So they finally come in and they give us papers. And they say, okay, ma'am, sir, we're going to take him into emergency surgery. This paper tells us that we can do what we need to do.
Anything to save his life.
Save his life.
Okay.
Which any parent in their right
course.
mind would go, oh, absolutely, 100%.
Save my
and
child.
I did, right? I
But
signed
why
the paper.
do I...
But I'm like, I felt like I was giving my child to him.
Yeah.
Any rights that I had were gone.
Right.
I'm like, what am I going to do? I've tried to help him for a week and a half.
Yeah.
So, it's just emotional still.
Sure.
Yes.
It's barely a year.
Yeah. So, they come in, we sign the paper, and they're like, okay, we're going to go do this. Come give him a kiss. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, I don't know if he'll make it through this, so come give him his last kiss.
And they said that. They said
Yes,
his last
kiss.
And
They
not
did not
last kiss
expect
before
him
surgery.
to survive.
Wow.
They did everything they could, but I know the look that they gave me, and I know that they didn't think it would happen.
And so is that when it hit you and your husband?
Oh, for sure. And I couldn't even get to his face. I kissed his hand.
And you couldn't get to his face because...
They were working on him.
Right.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
There wasn't room for me to get to him.
So all I could do was kiss
All
his
I
little
could do
hand.
was grab his hand.
Oh.
And I remember praying so hard, God, give me that hand back.
Yes.
Wow.
Let me hold that hand again.
Yes.
I love you.
Wow.
He's like, why are you crying, Mom?
Yes. And
Yeah.
Thomas is in studio with us.
He is. He's playing down here being so sweet. But anyway, so we do all that. And he goes to surgery, and it feels like, hours. It was like an hour and a half. But they come back out of the surgery, and the surgeon that we have is an amazing surgeon who, I think they said she had 40 years of
Oh my gosh.
experience. I mean, she knows what she's
That's
doing.
definitely an answer to
good.
prayer
Yes.
to get that expertise.
Yeah. And then she had another gentleman, and I don't know his specialty, and to this day, I wish I did. But he's the one that placed the drain to drain the abscess. That's what they
Right.
decided to do to save him, which did.
Oh.
But I remember them walking out, and in this moment, like, I don't know if anybody's been in this situation where you have a loved one and you're like, did they die or did they make it? I don't know. And you're waiting to hear the news.
Right.
And you're trying to prepare yourself for whatever that news is.
Yes.
And I remember the surgeon walking out, she's like somber as can be. I mean, looks like,
Wow.
honestly, like death warmed over. And the gentleman that placed the drain, he comes in and he goes,
Oh, that's.
Oh.
and I'm like,
So for our
such a
listening
sigh of relief.
and
audience,
I'm like, I don't
you're,
care. You can talk to me out for hours. I'm fine. We made it through this.
so at this point,
I know that.
what Robyn has done is she picked it up her thumbs. It was a thumbs up. So
Yeah, I don't
people
know if
that
you
aren't
can
watching,
That's true.
she gave a thumbs
about
up from the doctor.
Yeah.
And so now you're happy.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that thumbs up is really all I needed at that moment.
Yeah.
And so I knew that we made it through that, and I knew that that was the first hurdle, and I knew that we were definitely not out of the woods.
Okay.
We get to a room, and there's multiple nurses at his bedside that night. I mean, they didn't even leave his room.
Oh wow.
They charted in the room, but they said, "Mom and Dad, you've been through enough. Lay down.
Yeah.
We're going to cover you up. Here's a little turkey sandwich. You need something to eat."
Right.
And lay down, go to sleep. And it's like 3:30 in the morning, you know. And because there's literally nowhere for us to go.
Right.
We could leave the room, but, you know, we ain't doing that.
You're not going to go home.
You can't pay me to leave that room.
No.
Right.
So we were like, okay. So we lay down, and I know my husband was just like, whew, I'm just gone. And for me, you know, it's like,
Right.
I sleep 20 minutes, and I hear something, wake up, go back to sleep, wake up. So it was a long night, but we made it through the night where they said he won't make it through the night. And then the next morning they come back, do their rounds. They say, well, I'm glad he made it through the night, but he's probably not going to make it today.
Oh, wow.
But here's what we're going to try to do. So every day was the same thing. Like, you know, he's not going to make it. All the sirens. I know you hear sirens. I know, baby. But they kept coming in his room saying, he's going to die. They literally would tell me he's going to die.
In his room. In the
room.
Where he was. Okay.
Where he was. And they said, he's not in my home. They said, you know, in my opinion as a doctor, I don't see him making it today. I'm like, okay. Thank you for being honest, but okay.
But now you have a decision to make.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it was a few days of this, because you're living in this, like, I don't even know how to describe it. If you've not been there, you don't know. But you're just living from moment to moment,
Right.
hoping for the best,
Okay.
praying for the best. You pray constantly. You read scripture. You play
Yes.
worship music.
Yeah.
We had, our church is lovely, and we have numerous pastors, and they would come and pray. We had 3 or 4 a day coming and laying hands on him and praying, and with that community, I don't know where we'd be. But I remember there was a point where, and this is where the Here We Speak Life comes from, but the doctor came in and was just talking to us. She was the head doctor over the PICU floor at that point.
Okay.
And she says, anything I can do for you? Which was kind of odd, because doctors don't usually come in without, like, rounds to do. They send their attendings in or something, residents and things.
Yeah.
And so we were just talking, and I said, yes, actually, there is something I need from you. And she said, okay. And I just felt like the Holy Spirit, like, bubbling up in me. And I just opened my mouth and let him speak. And I said, I've heard enough of death.
Yeah.
I said, in this room, we will speak life. If you have to have a conversation with me about end of life, I want to be part of the conversation. Let's go in the hallway. Let's go to your conference room, because I know you've got one.
Yeah.
We'll go somewhere else. But here, Thomas does not need to hear those words.
That's right.
Or even yourself. You and
No,
your
I don't
husband.
either. Absolutely. And so I just had enough. And my mama bear kicked in, and I'm like, no, this is not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so after that, everything changed. Thomas started waking up. His eyes would start to open, his hands would start moving, and all this stuff.
So was he in a coma or just
Yeah,
like
he
in
was sedated.
He was heavily sedated. Okay.
I don't know how do you say that.
Drug
Forgive me,
induced.
medical professionals. He was intubated. There we go. I had to think about it for a second. He had wires everywhere. I
Yeah.
mean, if there was a
Tubes.
vein, it was probably taken.
Oh.
Okay.
And then they have, if I'm saying this correctly, they have IV towers in the room. He had 2.
Wow.
Most
Okay.
people have 1, and there's multiple. I think there were 6 different parts to each tower. So imagine
6 different lines coming out of it.
of each
Wow.
tower.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 12 lines.
So I think I can't, if I remember that right.
A lot.
But for a baby,
Yes.
it's a lot. And so it was incredible what, if you've seen pictures of him, it's incredible to see where he's come from. But at that moment, it was just like, no, we're gonna do it this way. I'm gonna stop you right here. And I said, when you come in here, please. I want to be part of this conversation. But tell me what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
Let's lead off with that.
And so the moment you said, "Here we speak life," you started noticing Thomas' eyes opening
Yes.
up, and he's becoming
He
on
started
his
sucking.
own.
His mouth started sucking.
Oh, wow.
Even though he was intubated, he was still doing that motion. He was kind of like blinking his eyes, and like that's when I was like, oh, there's a glimpse. He's
Wow.
in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it made us pray harder,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
And so, we are laying hands on him ourselves, just mom and dad, and just praying over him like, God, you promised.
Yeah. Yes.
You promised that you would never leave or forsake us.
Yes.
So right now, we need you here.
Right.
We need you to heal him.
Yeah.
And it did. I mean, my gosh, over every single day was a win.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there's setbacks, but it wasn't like immediate. But every day was a little bit of healing, a little bit of healing, a little bit of healing, a little bit. So it would get us through.
Right. So it was
To
just
the
enough
next
to
day.
get you to the next point.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet still every day the doctors were saying this may be the last.
At that point, they listened.
Okay.
And they, the surgeon who, honestly, now we're like, I texted her. I was able to text her a
Wow.
year after
Wow.
and say, today has been a year since his medical trauma. I said, I appreciate you.
Wow.
A year ago, I was scared to death of her.
Right.
She was so intimidating. But now I'm like, I'm inviting her to Thomas's birthday parties,
wow.
it's a completely different relationship, because I stood up and I said, I understand where you're coming from, but if you walk in this room and you look at him, you know that there's a possibility that he could pass. Yes. But you don't know the God I serve. So we're gonna have faith, and we're gonna pray,
Wow.
because we know that he can break through that.
Wow.
So, and
Well,
even to this day,
I'm sure for her, she was probably just as intimidated of you.
Probably.
Because she knows she's standing
I didn't
behind
think of it like
science.
that.
Because she's standing behind science and looking
Yeah.
at everything, but you're standing behind the God of faith.
right.
And so she's probably just
That's
as
a
intimidated.
great point. That's absolutely a great point. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
And so then how many
Yeah.
days did this go on?
He was in the hospital for 26 days. I think he was sedated with intubation for 2 weeks, and then
Wow.
took that out, and he was so ready for that to be out. He was
Yeah.
like ready, like, give me applesauce, give me something. And he
so
was
cute.
ready.
Yeah.
Ready. But in those times, I would say about a week in, he's still sedated and everything. He's starting to wake up, but they started noticing his toes are going black. And they realized that there was a line in his groin that they had, an arterial line, they call it. And because he's so small, and the lines are just, they are what they are. Can't make them smaller. And his blood pressure is so low. Like, all these things are combined.
Wow.
So they found that he had a blood clot in his, like, upper thigh area.
Okay.
And so no blood flow was getting to his feet.
Oh, wow.
And we're like, okay.
So it's like you get through
Like,
one
we've
hurdle.
got, like, God literally brought him back from like,
Wow.
we were on death's doorstep.
Sure.
And here we are looking at this.
Yeah.
And the doctor, there was a vascular surgeon, and she said, it's just too risky to go in and operate. I'm too nervous about that.
But what are the options?
It doesn't outweigh the outcome, right? So she goes, so we're going to treat it conservatively. I'm like, okay. So they gave him blood thinners, and they did this. It's like, I think they said it's called like a bear hug. So it's basically like an air mattress that you blow up with hot air,
Oh,
and they lay it over the bed.
okay.
It fits exactly in the crib. It's the right size. And it basically just keeps him warm. So it tracks the blood flow. You know how
Okay.
if you're cold, things retract. If it's warm, things relax. And so they were trying as best they could
Yeah.
with science to force the blood flow to his foot. And so, of course, we are praying and praying and praying.
Yeah.
But it had been days without blood flow to that foot.
Oh my gosh.
So here they are. They do their rounds. They come in. They say, well, we're looking at, this is going, what they call it, gangrene.
Yes.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Gangrene. And I'm like, okay, what's that mean? They said, well, it's dead tissue.
Oh, wow.
But what that does is it takes the tissue that is live, and it it kills it too. So it spreads.
It spreads, yeah.
If you don't take care of it.
Yeah.
Right.
So they said, we're going to amputate from the ankle down. And I went, no. I literally kind of like chuckled and said, no. And they're like, well, you know, this is what Mr. Schwarz, we need to do, da, da, da. I'm like, I understand. I really do understand where you're coming from. But he's going to walk out of here.
Wow.
And they just were like, are you delusional, ma'am? You can kind of see in their eyes. I'm like, no, he's going to walk out of here. I have full faith that this child will walk out of here.
And how was your husband during all this? Like,
He
because
was
you're obviously
100% on board with me. Oh my goodness. He was there from day one. Our church that we work for, they actually were so kind. They gave us a hotel room just down the street for the weeks. I mean, it was like 3 weeks or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. Because we live 30 minutes away. And I'm like, that 30 minutes is crucial when you're dealing with a child like this.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm like, I couldn't leave. It took me 6 days to leave the hospital room. Because it was like, you just don't know. You could go get a drink and come back and, you know, like, you don't know. And it was too much. And so they were like, here's a hotel a half mile down the road. It's just a block away. You're 5 minutes away. Is that cool? I'm like, John's like, yes, it's good. Please, we need sleep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those little hospital beds are, you know, they are not meant for that.
Comfortable, yeah.
Right.
And so, anyway, so we were able to stay in a hotel, and I mean, they were gracious, and they said, John, you know, take care of your family.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh. So had he not been with me that whole time, I mean, I needed him so much. He needed me too.
Yes, yes, we need each other.
And so, I mean, it actually strengthened our marriage, which most people would say, oh my goodness, spending 24/7 with someone in that kind of an environment, in that kind of trauma,
high stress,
will like break you.
Right.
And again, if you allow it, it can.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know,
and
we
your
were
two other
determined.
kids are.
We are strong together. And, you know, we work through that with one another. So it was miracle after miracle.
Okay, so now we're coming back to they're telling you we need to amputate.
We amputate the foot, and I said no. But I literally, there was not a thought in my mind that my child would lose his foot.
Wow.
Never.
Okay.
Never. I think at that point my faith was so strong.
Yeah.
Because I saw what God did.
Yeah.
Like before my eyes. Not everybody gets that opportunity. And I count that a blessing.
Right.
That God afforded me that blessing.
Yeah.
That opportunity to see that.
Yeah.
But, you know, so we're calling on our pastors and our people at our church, and we're like, okay, we've got something we got to pray on. Big time. Let's save his foot.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so there was a couple pastors that came and brought us some dinner, and they knew my husband loved chili, so they brought him some chili. He was so excited. And they're like, well, before we go, let's pray over Thomas. I'm like, okay. So there's 4 of us in the room, and we're 2 of us have our hands on him. We're just kind of circling around, and our surgeon has a colleague that works with her, and she came in and she said, I'm so sorry to interrupt. And we're like, you're not interrupting?
Yeah.
But they would check the blood flow of his foot like every hour, maybe every 2 hours, but usually about every hour.
Yeah.
Just to check. You never know. Like, they want to see if there will be anything coming back, because they're still thinking we're going to need to amputate.
Right.
So anyway, so she comes in. I'm like, you do your thing. I said, but if you don't mind, we're going to keep praying. She goes, oh, absolutely. No problem. And I'm like, okay. So we continue praying, and she's starting a Doppler on his foot to check the blood flow. And we've done this many, 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 many times. We know what it sounds like. We know the look on their face, like, not today. Okay, you know. And so we're praying, and then we kind of like listen, and we hear,
Oh.
and we're like, and she's like, let me check again. I'm going to turn it all the way up. Because it was really faint.
Yeah.
It was really, really faint.
Wow.
But you could hear blood flow.
And you could hear blood flow. And
Wow.
that second time I heard it, I think I jumped. I felt like I jumped feet in the air. I know I didn't. But that's what it felt like, you know. Because you experience, like, we literally watched God
Yeah.
put the blood flow back in his foot.
Wow.
Right there in front of the doctor.
Wow.
For her to see. And we're just, like, rejoicing and praising in that room. Like,
Wow. Oh my
God,
gosh.
you came through. You
Yes.
pulled through again.
Yes.
Here you are doing it again.
Yes.
You know? And so she's like, oh my goodness. So of course she keeps checking the other places, and we're starting to hear more.
Oh, wow.
Like, oh, thank the Lord, thank the Lord, thank the Lord. Because he had 4 of his toes were black. And when we walked out of the hospital, he had one big toe that was black, and it was still black at that point.
Okay.
And so we were concerned. We're like,
Yeah.
well, you know, they sent us home, but I had to do all the wound care and all the things, which I'll get to that in a second too. But we were concerned, like, that he would lose that toe altogether.
And is that
But I'm
the-
like, one toe out of, you know, I'm like,
Yeah.
that's okay. We can handle, you know.
Right.
And again, it didn't. That toe grew back. Not
Wow.
kidding. Not kidding.
So which toe
Wow.
was
Back.
it that was black?
It was the right foot, big toe.
The big toe. So it was
So he
black.
has no nail, and it's all pretty much flesh inside because they've done X-rays and things.
Okay, I think we missed a little part in here. So
Yeah.
the toe went black, and then
Uh-huh.
what happened?
So the rest of the little toes, as his blood flow came back, they
came-
started turning pink in the
Back to
hospital.
the normal color.
Normal color.
Okay.
And so you could kind of tell, like, the big toe was starting to come pink.
Okay.
But the top, because it had been
So-
dead for
Yeah.
so long, that skin was becoming crusty and gross and like a scab.
Okay.
Right, right.
And so they're like, well, take him home. You know, he doesn't need to be in the hospital for this. I'm like, okay. So we take him home, and we kind of just wait for that to fall off.
Okay.
But I'm thinking, you know, I'm wondering, like, God, is it going to, you know, like when you lose a tooth, you sometimes lose a tooth, and it's because there's a new tooth right there waiting,
Growing,
right?
Right.
I'm like, is it going to be that? Or is it going to take the whole toe with it? Like, you just don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Okay.
And so, again, we're just praying, and one day he woke up, and it was gone. And I'm like, where'd it go?
His toe
Oh my
was gone.
goodness. The black part of the,
The black
toe was
part of the
gone.
toe was gone. Okay.
And I look at him, and I'm like, dude, you've got
You've
a toe. Like, you have a legit toe.
Wow.
It just boggled my mind,
Yeah.
thinking, you know, you don't hear about people having limbs grow back.
All right.
That's just not something that's common.
Right.
But they said, you know, medically speaking, that sometimes with children, because their bodies are ever changing, ever growing, and
Right.
rejuvenating, all these things, that sometimes that can happen.
Wow.
Oh.
And I'm like, but have you actually seen it? You know? So, anyway, so they kept thinking, you know, with all the trauma that happened to that toe, that he would have to have surgery on it. And so we had surgery planned,
Okay.
thinking we would need to stretch it out a little bit or whatever.
Okay.
We had a podiatrist that was going to do it. Well, a week before his surgery, that podiatrist is let go of his position. And I'm like, here again, I feel like God is
Wow.
saving
Is
Thomas
right.
from what could have been a long surgery, possibly a loss of a limb again,
Right.
Yeah.
because you don't know what could
Wow.
happen in surgery. It's just thing after thing after thing after thing. And God has been looking out for him every single step of the way.
So the
was
podiatrist
just-
is fired
Yep.
a week before the surgery,
Yep.
and so now what do you do?
So we found a different podiatrist, and he goes, this child does not need surgery.
Oh wow.
This child does not need physical therapy. This child does not, he's perfectly, look at him. He goes, I guarantee you, you come back in 6 months, this kid's going to be off to the races.
Oh wow.
And this
Wow.
child, we haven't even made it to month 6 yet, from when I saw that doctor.
Okay.
But he's jumping,
Yeah.
he's
Wow.
climbing,
Yeah.
he's climbing on a little furniture and jumping around and acting
Yeah.
like a silly kid because he's supposed to be.
Right. He's acting like
Right?
a almost
Almost
3-year-old.
3-year-old.
Right.
Wow.
But if you would look at him, you would never think that he's been through this trauma. That
No,
I'm
he's absolutely
described.
adorable. So you guys will get to see him in a little bit. but he's
Hopefully he'll let me
absolutely
hold
adorable.
him and you can like see his face.
So cute.
But yeah, he's like all over the place now.
So take us
So.
back one more time. You leave the hospital, you go through the issue with the toe, and then they say he needs surgery for his appendix.
Right. So this whole time in the hospital, the surgeon, she said it's just too risky. He's too inflamed. There's too many things that could go wrong.
Uh-huh.
It's already ruptured. Right. So she's like, I don't feel right about doing the surgery right now.
Okay.
I'm like, okay. She said, so I want to see him back in my office after you're discharged. I'm like, okay. And so we saw her multiple times, and I kind of think she just wanted to follow him because she loved him.
Yes.
But I don't.
Of course.
That's real.
How do you not
I
get
don't know.
attached to that?
But a lot of people in the hospital had said that, like nurses and things. They would tell me like she doesn't treat other patients like this.
Oh, wow.
He's special to her.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm like, I wonder why.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we keep going to see her, and she sees us about every week to 2 weeks, kind of monitoring how he's doing and all these things.
Yeah.
And so she finally was like, I think it's time to go get the surgery. I'm like, okay. So September 13th. It was 2 months after he got out of the hospital last year. And we have the surgery. Everything goes well. She comes out. And most surgeons don't do this. She comes out to the lobby. She talks to us in the lobby, for one. And then she plops in her chair, and I'm going to, if you're seeing it on video, you can kind of see, but she goes, oh. And I'm like, lady, you're going to have to start speaking.
She's like exhausted,
this is not-
exasperated.
But she's just like, ugh, you know.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you doing? What is going on? I say, okay. Is he okay?
Right.
You have said nothing. She goes, oh, he's okay. Like, thank you. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So she goes, I'm a little baffled. I'm like, okay. She goes, I go in here to do an appendectomy. His appendix is normal.
Wow.
She used the word whole.
Oh, my
Wow.
goodness.
I know that wasn't a coincidence.
Right. Wow.
She said there was no evidence of a rupture.
Oh, my.
They even took like cells or whatever. She sent it off to the pathology department, and they came back and they're like, "There's nothing that shows
No
that-
sign of infection.
No sign of infection."
Wow.
So the only thing he had was because he had all that toxic fluid in his belly.
Uh-huh.
He had adhesions on his intestines, and so they had to go in there and do that. She said that was a little bit of a process getting some of that off.
Okay.
She said so he might have some issues later on in his life. As he starts growing, it'll probably work itself out. But
Okay.
no, that was a traumatic thing that happened to him, and he had a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah.
So, but she goes, I can't give you a reason why.
Wow.
I can't tell you what happened.
So her sigh basically is this whole thing of like seeing a family of faith defy her odds or the odds of science of just saying, and she has no explanation.
She has
except
no
faith,
explanation.
except faith
Right.
and a God.
And
that
I don't think, if I had to guess, I don't think that's ever happened to her.
Yeah.
Where she didn't
Yeah.
have an explanation.
Wow.
And so it's like, holy cow. You know?
Wow.
So we go from like this. She goes, I'm going to admit him just to watch him because I just want to make sure that him going home is the right move. So we'll probably keep him overnight just
Sure.
to be safe. He's had a crazy few months. And I'm like, I am okay with that.
Right.
I will not
Yes.
say no to that.
Yeah.
So we stayed in the hospital. I remember he slept a lot that first night, and I was able to call my parents, and I was like, this is what happened. I got to talk to them, and tell them the whole story. And I got to tell them of the miracle of, that there wasn't an appendix that burst.
Wow.
And I don't have an answer. My dad's like, he likes to know why things happen.
Sure.
And I'm like, I don't have an answer.
Sometimes
I said-
logic does not.
I said, but I know that God healed him.
Right.
So you're calling your parents. Your parents are in Missouri.
They're in Missouri.
So the day after, or the day of surgery, you're calling your parents and you're telling them the
On the 13th,
amazing, miraculous
amazing. And so then on the 14th, we went home later in the evening. And so then the 15th, we just kind of relaxed and like got used to being home again and recovering from surgery. And then 4 o'clock that next morning, I get a phone call from my dad.
On the 15th?
It's technically the 16th,
So-
but overnight
so
that day.
Okay.
And he said, your mom's passed.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, I'm sorry? He's like, yeah, she had a heart attack and
She's gone.
she's gone.
She died.
Wow.
3
I'm
days
like-
after your son.
I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, are you sure? Like,
Right.
you know, of course he's been in the room. He knows. But she had a heart dissection 12 or 13 years ago. And the doctor goes, I've never met anyone that had a dissection before. My mom's like, what do you mean? This was back in 2009.
Okay.
And he goes, they've all died.
Oh, wow.
So I count it all joy that
Yeah.
the Lord blessed us with her for another 12, 13 years. She got to see me get married and have children and unfortunately walk through this with me.
But that's but you got to
But
see that
she got
miracle.
to come the summer. Like they came and stayed with my kids.
Okay.
And so that was huge because it provided a stable environment for them at our house.
Uh-huh.
And of course, my parents loved being here and helping and doing what they could to help and get to see Thomas as well.
Right.
And so that is time that I wouldn't have normally gotten to have with them.
Wow.
Right. So, but that was a very, very tough conversation.
Yeah.
And because, we've been, with Thomas, we knew all this was happening and we had the opportunity to pray for him.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We asked God, we need a miracle. We need you to come. We need you to do this right now.
Yeah.
All these things. And we watched him do miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle.
For 26 days.
For 26 days and beyond.
Yeah.
And then with my mom, it was 10 minutes.
Wow.
I didn't even know. I mean, I knew she went to the she's like, my chest kind of hurts. And this had been a story that had happened before, And so they went to the ER and I thought, she's going to get a medicine. She's going to go home.
Mm-hmm.
It did not faze me when I heard the night before. And so this was not the case this time. She goes in and they give her medicine and she's instantly gone.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay.
Wow.
But I didn't get a chance to pray for her.
Yeah.
No.
Right?
So now you have to.
So it's like you kind of hold both together.
Yeah.
Right? You hold immense joy
Right. Wow.
for your child.
Yeah.
And then sorrow.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. So what I would say to our audience and what spoke to me is that when I listened to your story, when Simona and I listened to your story the first time,
Yeah.
I felt like we had the option of saying we can either be incredibly encouraged,
Yeah.
or you have the choice to be discouraged because of what might have or not have happened in your own life. But listen to the entire story for the past year,
That was a hard year.
a very,
Yeah.
you have the both, like you said, the sorrow and the joy. And in it, you still have that choice. So anybody, all of our listeners, whatever your story is right now, what you've been through or what you've been through years ago or what you're going through, you do have that choice. Are you going to be encouraged?
Right.
Or are you going to take on the sorrow? Because that you do hold both.
You do.
But in it, you're holding on to God. You're holding on to the throne room. You're holding on to what He has ultimately said. And our lives are literally in His hands. Our breath is in His hands.
Right.
So for all those of you are listening and you're struggling, because I definitely know there's those who are,
Yes.
don't give up the hope.
Yeah.
Right.
Even if you feel like it's past and it's gone, don't give up hope. Don't be discouraged, because in all of this, looking at you and meeting Thomas, you're not discouraged.
No.
No.
You're not down.
No.
You're still having that hope. You have the joy,
Yeah.
and you grieve the loss of your mom. But even as you said, we had the opportunity to spend time with her,
Yep.
and
Yep.
all those years that you were.
We spoke life
Expect-
into that situation too.
Yeah.
Because you have a choice.
Yes. Yes. You have a choice.
You can go, I'm going to wallow in this and I'm going to just,
Yeah.
yeah.
woe is me. forever.
And you could just easily forget what God had done for Thomas.
Absolutely.
And just go into the anger of like,
100%.
why couldn't I have been given the opportunity to pray for my mother and to speak life into her at those moments?
Right.
So, wow, that's definitely speaks to your, if anything, it's your faith. Like, I mean, seriously, I thought I had faith, but you literally have like faith that has moved mountains. And like you said, most of us as believers don't really get to see the miracles or the prayers that we are doing or speaking forth and see it just manifest instantly. And so for you to be able to have that, like for you to have that is such a powerful testimony. And I'm actually curious about the doctor, like
yes, me too.
her, like in terms of like like wanting or curiosity of like faith, or what is this, because there really is no scientific explanation.
No.
And that's what faith is. And wow.
I mean, last time I saw her in the office, and it was funny because she asked me to come back after the appendectomy because she wanted to follow him because of his toes.
Right.
And I'm like, but you're not the one doing the surgery on his toes.
On his toes.
Wow.
I'm like, I will definitely come see you.
I just need an excuse so I can see her.
Right.
I think it's really, I'm telling you,
Oh
I really think that's what it was. And it's just like, the relationship that her and I mean, the last time I saw her, she gave me hugs. She gave Thomas hugs. She was like, I've never seen a family pray and have faith as much as you could.
Wow.
She's using words that
she
I never thought she would use.
Yeah, that she wouldn't use.
Yeah.
When you're looking at things scientifically, you don't say faith. You don't say pray.
No.
You're sticking to
I'm pretty sure she's like Italian, and so I have a feeling that she's like of a Catholic persuasion.
Okay.
Which is fine.
Yeah, so
Right,
she
it's
believes in
great.
God.
But I don't think that she's ever seen it lived out
Right.
like this.
Right.
Wow.
And so it was just it's incredible.
Yeah.
With my podcast that I have, I've been kind of wanting to like call her up and go, can we talk?
Do it.
Yes. Oh, that
Can we
would be
just go
exciting.
through it? Like I just want to talk to you. Like
Yes. So you have
she's a
a
busy woman though.
Well,
Yeah.
so you have a podcast based
Yes.
off of what you went through,
Right.
and your
Yeah.
podcast is called,
Here we speak life.
and that came from when you were in the
hospital.
hospital, and the hospital room you said, we need
In
to
this room,
speak,
we speak life.
in this room we speak life.
Yeah.
And
So
And
that's
that
where
just-
that came from. Because I felt like
Yeah.
after that experience was over, I felt God really impress upon me that we don't hear enough about it.
right.
We hear a lot about diagnosis. We hear a lot about death. We hear a lot about sickness. I mean, it's our world. It's what we live in.
Yeah.
We hear about it all the time.
Well, yeah, we're fighting against sickness every day.
All the time.
Right.
Take this
And
medicine,
it's
take
like
this vitamin.
nobody's talking. I mean, yes, there are people talking. I don't should say nobody. But there are far less people saying, I saw God do this.
Yeah.
I saw God come through here.
Yeah.
I saw God in these moments.
Right.
Because even in the death of my mother,
Yes.
he was so evident and so close.
Yeah.
But you have to open your eyes and look for
Right.
him.
Yeah.
Because he is there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a lot of times when we're going through grief like that, we shut out the world. We isolate.
Right.
We think we're alone.
Yeah.
We're not.
Right.
100% we're not.
Right. And that is a choice too.
Yes.
And I just love that you just became a warrior. and most moms would, but we don't all know how to be a warrior at times.
Right.
And you figured it out, you and your husband and your family and
Our community.
your community support. So that is awesome.
Yeah.
So, and I promised I would go into my side, so I'm going to take my turn. I'll let Simona speak and ask some questions too, as we're nearing the end of our hour here.
Oh my goodness, I talked to
That's okay.
Such a great story, though. Very entertaining.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't want to miss out any details
Yeah.
because there is one detail that you still haven't spoken about, so I'll get back to that one detail. And
I can't remember what it was.
that's okay, I do.
Okay.
I was there.
You were there.
So and I told you I call myself a JIT. I'm a Jew in training because I'm learning Judaism. But I've been in love with the Tanakh, or the Old Testament, for several years. Since the lockdowns, I was able to spend a lot of time studying, deep diving into the Old Testament. So I'm still there in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
I'm still in the first 5 books. I'm not expert yet. But what I have learned, when you look at the 631 laws that God wrote, and you look at them, what God loves more than anything is life.
Mm-hmm.
And so you said, here we speak life. You're singing heaven's harmony. You're singing the soul of God from heaven's throne room. Here we speak life, because in the very beginning, God said we will have life. And so when you look at his laws and you look at his mindset, what he's thinking, what he's processing, and when he gave those laws, and he's talking to Moses, and he's talking to his Israelites, to the point where, which I don't know how familiar people will be with the laws, probably more familiar than I am, but obviously you can't harm a human. Parents cannot harm their children, so he has laws for that. But to the point of, you do not cut down a tree that has fruit on it. So a life-bearing tree cannot be used for building. Also, one of the laws is, if you go into the land of your enemy and you destroy them, you are not to cut down their trees. So life is so critically important to God in the Old Testament. So it really shouldn't be a surprise to that life is still important to us. Not that it is, but that you're so in tune with his heartbeat. Like, yes, we're speaking life. Yes, we're speaking life. And so here you see, you spoke life, and it could really go deep on that one for a long time, but even the letter ha, or hey in Hebrew, what letter hey is pronounced with air. So you say hey, and that means life.
Yeah.
And because you have to use air, you're actually breathing life. You're literally hey. Yeah. So that letter, and so when you look at Abraham, Sarah, after they were changed from Abram to Abraham and Sarai to Sarah. And I'm not a scholar, I'm learning this from other people. But God is so amazingly in love with life and hates death so much that when we speak it, we're so in tuned. We're absolutely in tune. So that's all I'm going to say. Simona, I'll let you give your thoughts. And
well, definitely thank you so much for sharing your powerful testimony. It definitely has changed my perspective on faith. And I know that we had spoken in terms of focusing on the importance of speaking life. And so my question, not to really get the focus off of the life, but I don't know if you've come across people who have prayed and believed for their own child or their own family member so hard, and prayed and believed God would heal them, and they did not, and God didn't heal. And so they're in this place of where the remorse, the regret, the anger, the bitterness. So what do you say from someone coming off of that experience, and how do you speak life to them who are in this place of feeling that of loss and death? So how do you speak life to them?
Yeah, good question.
That's really hard to answer. Really, really hard. Because while I do hold joy and sorrow, so I have the miracle that's been answered, and I have the death of my mother, I didn't get the chance to ask God for that miracle.
Right.
You know? Yeah. He just called her home. He said, it's time. You know, come on home, Kathy. So, but those, like, especially, you know, losing babies and little ones.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer. But I know that God's still good.
Yeah.
He's still on the throne.
Yeah.
And he's loving those babies.
Yes. That's right.
With everything he has. I saw that a lot in the hospital. When I would need to take a break from Thomas, I would walk the hallways. And I would just pray over these families.
Wow.
And a lot of these kids didn't even have families in the room. And it's like,
wow.
It was heavy. And the trauma is still there for them too.
Sure.
Even though we brought him home.
Right.
Clearly.
Right.
Yeah.
There's still grief.
Right.
There's still trauma.
There's still tears.
You know, it's I felt kind of like the weight was all on me when we left. Because now I'm mom, I'm nurse, I'm doctor, I'm chauffeur, I'm everything.
Yeah.
And every decision I make is going to result in something.
Right.
Yes.
You know, but I'm so thankful for that opportunity, obviously.
Right.
And I feel for those families that don't get that place.
Sure. And we embrace those who have
just
had the
love
loss.
them.
Yeah.
that they're brave,
Right.
they're seen.
Yes, and God does still hear their prayers.
100%.
God still holds them.
Right. Yeah.
And God is very
Yes.
much like that bear hug you were talking about, what they gave your
Yes.
son. That is God and Holy Spirit to
Yes.
us.
Right.
Yes.
And so my last question, as we do wrap this up, the one final detail that I thought was
Uh-oh.
really like,
I don't remember what this detail is. I've been racking my brain to think about what it could be.
like I said, I remember. But you had a specific prayer to God when everything would be finished. And you say, God, I want proof that what
Oh,
Thomas
yes.
went through,
Yeah.
that there'll still be a sign
Yeah.
that people will be able to, that he'll be able to tell stories. This is my physical sign. So do you want
Yeah.
to speak to that?
Yeah,
And then,
I'll tell you that real quick. So when Thomas had the toe and everything else, we want to pray, God, restore it 100%. God, restore it to where, it's back to its original glory, if you will. I took a little more unconventional route. And I'm like, God, if there's a way that you can work this out to where Thomas maybe isn't 100% restored,
okay.
that yes, he can walk, he can run, he can climb, he can swim, he can bike, he can everything.
Yes.
But maybe there's a scar. Maybe there's something. So when he's like 15 and his buddies are like, what's that on your toe? Why don't you have a toenail?
Yeah.
And he can be like, let me tell you what God did for me.
That's right.
I was 1 year old, and this is my story. Because that little guy is going to have,
A powerful
I
testimony.
know there's something strong on him,
Yes.
Yeah.
and God's going to use him for really big things. And I love that he allowed him to have a little bit of, I don't want to say that.
It's a sign.
Yes,
It's a
sign.
sign. It's a
Thank
little
you.
sign.
A sign.
It's still, he's healed.
Just to remind us of what he went through.
Yeah.
Because sometimes in day to day when I'm like, can you please not touch that? Because he's almost 3. It's,
Yeah.
he's in the other room right now, and I'm constantly thinking about what he's doing. But it's, you get hung up on the mundane sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know that when I go to give him a bath and I go to change his socks, I'm like, oh yeah.
And it's a reminder for you.
Every time it's a reminder,
I love it.
don't forget.
Don't forget.
Because
what God
sometimes
did
we
for you.
do. We
Oh,
let
yes.
it get,
Yes.
you let every day's get to you.
Right.
And even for us as a family that have lived through that trauma, we still need proof. We
Right.
need to go, oh, Jesus, you did that.
So good. And that's
good.
so
Yeah.
exactly what memorials are for. Like, it's why God had them
Yeah.
build certain things. When you cross
Yeah.
the Jordan, you're going to put these stones there, and you're going to tell the story. And when they tell the story every feast, they tell it when we came out of Egypt. To this day, when you brought us up out of Egypt, because we tell the story. And so we
Right.
have the memorial. So is there a way that we can get Thomas in here so the audience can see
Yeah.
him? And
Cover that up. Thomas! Come here, baby.
Oh my God, he's so cute.
it's all, Thomas!
Come here.
Hello.
I might have to go grab him. Thomas!
Why don't you go grab him
Come
so that we
here.
can all at least see his
Okay.
cute little face. He's
Yep.
he's absolutely adorable and energetic and intelligent. He knows some of his letters. He was
He
telling
knows all of them.
he was teaching me some letters that I didn't know.
I was
And
surprised he put all the letters back in that
he
little toy
did. He
thing
put the letters.
correctly.
Yeah, he did good. And he speaks
not
in
even 3.
complete sentences. Simona, why is your phone ringing? What 3-year-old says that? So it's absolutely a doll. And here he is.
Let's see if we can get back in the seat. I am so sorry about the microphone. I might have to just turn around for a sec.
That's all right. We just want to see him, and
Hey!
his little shirt says, "I'm proof that God answers prayer."
Can you say, I am Thomas?
I think he's saying, "I'm
Can you say,
tired."
it's nap time? No. Can you say,
Oh, he wants to go back and play.
Can you say Jesus? Oh, we're tired, huh? We hit our window, didn't we?
Well, thank you, Robyn. Thank you,
guys.
Thomas, for coming and sharing your experience, your your battle and faith and your overcoming. So that's okay. So we will let you guys
3-year-old life.
go back to enjoying your day, and I don't know, take a nap for me too.
Yeah.
Can you do that for me?
Take a nap for her?
A good nap for us.
Hi.
Sweet dreams.
He's like, wait,
He's like, wait, am I going to
nap?
Yeah.
Now he's quiet. Then we're gonna.
Too much attention all at once.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'll go ahead and sign up. Any last moments, any last statements you want to make, Simona? You can find us, by the way. I shout out to your friend and my friend, Carissa, who introduced us, and I'm really glad. So I'm sure that there will be, because we've had people say, how do we get in contact with you? We have a person with a great testimony, great story, or great ministry. You can reach me. I'm very easy to find. Facebook under Tanya Edwards. You can reach me also email TanyaTucson@msn.com. Tanya is spelled Tanya. I have 2 A's in there. It's really important to have the A's. So TanyaTucson@msn.com or Facebook at Tanya Edwards. And then Simona, you can be found through Good to Great
Good to Great Christian Ministries.
And shout out to Good to Great Christian Ministries for hosting us and supporting us. Right now, you're our only supporters. All of us are volunteers. And shout out to Here We Speak Life podcast with Robyn Schwarz. And how else can people find you, Simona?
Oh, they can find me online. Well, actually, just through Good to Great Christian Ministries.
Okay.
And then you can also email me at simonadamon@gmail.com. That's my personal email. And then you could also reach the church at admin@g2gcm.org.
Okay, and G to G is G number 2?
Yes.
G.
Oh, yes, my bad. Admin, ADMIN, and then G2, the number 2, GCM.org. Thank you.
Very good. No, I just want to make sure that we all got it clear. So again, Tanya Edwards on Facebook, TanyaTucson@msn.com. Please let me know if there's somebody that you want me to interview, that you want us to be in contact with. We would love to reach out to them. I'm very excited to meet more people. Next week, you won't want to miss, we have Mr. and Mrs. Don Price, a retired police officer, in his book, Cop Talk. You will want to purchase that and read that. If not now, you'll definitely want to read it after meeting him and his wife and listening to their testimony of how God worked in their lives as well. So again, Here We Speak Life podcast with Robyn Schwarz. You'll want to listen to her and more details on her podcast than she gave today for sure. So an amazing ministry, an amazing life. We love you, Tucson. Thank you so much. Have a great and blessed day.
Thank you.